Well, here we go again. I've just been watching a YouTube show on Alan Jones, Graham Richardson, and of course, my favourite, Jeremy Griffith. Now, on the show there, Alan Jones was talking about the dangers and risks of fires around eucalypt gum trees. And of course, we all know that's one of Jeremy Griffith's pet loves. He just wants to destroy every gum tree in Australia, replace all the forests in Australia with more tropical plants that won't grow in this area, but in every area of Australia, but more plants imported from overseas that don't burn quite as well. And I've got something near the end of this that'll sum that problem up quick, smart, and in a hurry. First, I'd like to go out to Alan Jones. Look, I'm a big fan of yours. You like to stand up for the little guy sometimes. But on this one, bringing Jeremy Griffith on your show, dude, that just brings you down. Like, that's bottom feeder scrap stuff. That guy has absolutely exactly what he's telling you he's got, and you're not listening. And I'll tell you what it is. He keeps going back to his human condition, the psychosis that we all have. Now, what he's basically saying to you is he's suffering some sort of psychosis, because apparently if you're suffering from a psychosis, you will go into some sort of belief into something that's happening, and it'll happen on a mass scale, and basically you'll promote that to the end of earth because you're suffering from trauma from somewhere else, and you're focusing on this to make yourself look good in front of your friends. Well, that's Jeremy Griffith, 100%. He is suffering from some form of psychosis, a psychosis that makes him believe that he's right, everyone else is on the left, everyone's a plant-hugging hippie, and everyone else is just completely wrong. Well, that's his psychosis. Gum trees are his psychosis. Fanatical about gum trees, fanatical about destroying them. And you and him, although you were supporting his argument to some effect, you were actually in complete opposition to what he's saying. Yet you tell him, oh, because last time you spoke on my channel, no media published a single word you said. That's because he's an idiot. He's suffering from his own little psychosis in his own little world and trying to ride some sort of train that makes him look good in front of his friends. Well, he doesn't look good in front of me. And your show is less the wiser for it, because if you actually listen to your show back over, you will see that you do have common sense in what you're thinking and what you're saying, but then you're agreeing with the eradication of gum trees and the replantation of some foreign tree from some other country that doesn't burn so well. And I've got something at the end of this that'll sum that up for you pretty good about how well that'll work. So I've got my piece of paper here, so I'll just go over some of the things that I really listen to your show, so I noted down stuff so that I could square it away for you. Now, this compassion fatigue that you spoke about, it's not compassion fatigue. That's not why people forget. They forget because their life is busy. They forget because time goes by. That's what happens. People forget, and they don't forget completely. If you have a discussion with someone, they go, oh yeah, I remember that. It's not like they've forgotten completely. But what do you want them to do about it? Seriously, it's happened. It's over. People are trying to recover. People are trying to rebuild lives. What do you want the whole world to do? Sit there and do nothing for the next 10 years while this occurs? They're not forgotten. Just people have moved on. And you said, oh, they just go on to another story. Well, that's life. You know that. You should know that more than anyone, because I can bet you don't sit at your kitchen table every night and go, oh, do you remember those fellows who that bushfire wiped out down there in New South Wales or Victoria? You don't do that. You forget until you do a show, until you have to read back up on what you know so that you can go to your show and sound knowledgeable. But it's not because people forget that it happened. Like, people know towns got demolished by bushfires. People know that. People know places get demolished by flood. People know that. It's not they're forgotten. But what do you want them to do about it? Like, a lot of people put in funds for fundraisers, and they raise massive amounts of money to help the towns rebuild. They've had government assistance, they've had people's assistance, they've had people on the ground assisting. It's like no one's forgotten it. It's just people have moved on with life. It's a bit of a ridiculous statement to say that, oh, they've forgotten it. Well, what, do you forget your war history? You don't talk about it every night. You don't go back and review it every night. Oh, that guy, he died in the trenches down there in Normandy. You don't review that guy's life every night. And it's much more significant. It just doesn't happen. So it's not like people forget it, but they move on. That's it. Life goes on. I've still got to work. I've still got to pay bills. I can't be sitting home dwelling that a town wiped out by a bushfire how many years ago? What for? They've got the assistance. They've got the help. Not everything is fixed. It doesn't get fixed overnight. It can take 10 and 20 years before they can even begin to even look like they're back to where they were 10 or 20 years ago. It's not something that I can change. I can't fix it. It's the same as when a flood comes. I can't fix everyone's home and make them all feel like it's all okay. Would you forget the people at Grantham? Did you forget the people at Toowoomba? You don't forget it. You just move on with your life, because it's not you personally being affected. It's just not how it is. And even those who are personally affected, some of them get the help quicker, some of them don't. Depends on who your insurance company is. But it's not about, what can I do about it? Nothing. It's nothing I can do about it. I can't sit there and mope about it. It's not going to help anyone. I got bills to pay. I haven't got time to be sitting moping around. So, it's not people forgetting. It's just people moving on with a busy life. And you know that more than anybody. You didn't sit there before the show, like, you didn't, before you even knew Jeremy Griffith was coming on the show, you weren't sitting there talking about bushfires in Victoria. That's bullshit, Otherwise you would be talking about the bushfires in Victoria, the floods, the Indigenous relations issues, the gender issues, the war issues, the economy issues, the finance future issues. There's so many things, housing issues, poverty issues, domestic violence issues, children violence issues. What, you want to talk about them all every night at the coffee table? Come on. You don't forget. You just got other things on your mind that you're doing at the time. No one forgets anything. We all know what's going on. So that was just bullshit. Sorry, Alan, but that's bullshit. You know it and I know it. You read up on this stuff before you come on the show to refresh your memory. The rest of it's bullshit. No one's forgetting it. Okay, let's square that one up. In regards to publishing Jeremy's words, no media publishing Jeremy's words, well, that's because he's an idiot, suffering from his own psychosis, which is why he developed the whole human condition. It's not about the human condition as a whole society. This is a reflection of Jeremy and Jeremy's mirror. This is what he sees of himself. There is an old saying about that, when you judge someone else, go look in the mirror. Because it's not someone else you're judging, it's yourself. And that's who he's judging. And all his psychosis shit is all about him. It's not about anyone else. It's about him having something's going on in his life, whether he's, I don't know, not popular in his field or whatever it is, but he's clinging to something that makes him look good in other people's eyes. That's all it is. And I'm going to call him out on it every single time I see it. Every single time I see a video of him come up on my thing, I'm going to come on here and I'm going to call him out because it's bullshit. So I was a bit, off colour about you putting him on your show. I thought you had a lot more dignity than that. So you come down a few pegs. But, overall, in history, your show's been pretty good. But on this one issue, you need to do your homework before you come on backing someone who's talking bullshit. That's what you need to do. Now, he's talking about replanting the entire Australian bushland. And you kind of support him in that by saying, oh, yeah, but no one's listening to you. Why don't you just call him what it is and go, it's an idiot idea. Like, even to think about it, it's an idiot idea. It's firstly, this is Australia, and those plantations and trees have been here long before you and I, long before the Aboriginals. The whole country's made of it. And our ecosystem, and I know what you're going to say, because Jeremy does too all the time, oh, you must be one of them lefty tree hugging. Well, I'm not. I've been involved in cutting down bushland, cleared, I don't know how many acres the motor raceway is out here at Amberley. I was there clearing that land. I'm not a tree hugger. It's not about being a tree hugger. It's just about having stupid ideas and smart ones. Selective clearing is okay. Selective clearing allows the younger saplings somewhere to grow. Takes out the big old ones that are just about dead. So I'm not a tree hugging lefty. I'm just a guy who's not left or right. I don't choose left or right. I just choose my own path and I walk my own path. I'm not here to please the left or the right. I don't give a shit what they think. But it's not about being a lefty or a tree hugging, animal loving, caring person. It's not that at all. It's just what's common sense and what's completely stupid. And common sense is we're not going to be clearing our entire bushland and replacing our native trees with foreign trees that burn less. Because I'll get to that at the end of this, because your very own argument, had you done your homework, squares that one up. Quick, smart, and in a hurry. So for everyone else listening, hang on till the end and we'll get on to Spain, because that's a real love kicker, that one. Because on the show that I watched, you were talking about how Spain is gutting the trees of gum trees, demolishing them, because they're in fear of the fire. That's what's put out in the media at the start of that thread. That's what the media put on it to sell the story. But if you listen to the actual factual quote from their government at the end of that story, it puts the bushfire thing right off the map. So just bear with me, because I wrote down the notes about what it says, and we'll get to that. So firstly, if we started bringing trees that don't burn so well into Australia, let's have a look at that idea for a minute. Like when we brought sugarcane here, and they were growing sugarcane, and then of course the sugarcane beetle got involved. What did we introduce to stop the sugarcane beetle? The cane toad. Now, what happens when you introduce a species that has very limited things that will eat it into an environment? It will take over and it will dominate that environment. Trees are no different than animals. They do the same thing. Lantana does the same thing. When you invite a foreign species onto another territory that has never been on before, if the environment's good for it, it will dominate, because there is nothing to eat it. There is nothing to do with it. So it just goes rampant. So planting our forests with foreign trees is a really bad idea. And you should know that, Alan, above everyone else, because you've done previous shows where you've promoted Australia-made, Australia's best, not let's bring in foreign stuff. You're all in for Australia's number one. We should be looking after Australia. And here you are now saying, let's gut the Australian forests and shit, let's bring some over from Canada, Africa. Let's bring them all over from other countries. Well, that's the most un-Australian thing I've ever heard you say. What you changed sides? You go and joined another little side cuckoo clock nest of let's just destroy Australia? I don't know why you would even come up with that, because that goes against everything that you've ever stood for. So I'm disappointed, Alan, in that, because that goes against everything that you have ever stood for. So anyway, we got that. Now, this statement about this religious fanaticism of people who are tree-hugging animal lovers who don't want to destroy the Australian forest. Well, that's not why I don't want to destroy the Australian forest. I don't want to destroy the Australian forest because it's the Australian forest. It is unique, it is one of a kind, and it's beautiful. And as much as bushfires do happen, and they do get out of control, and they do decimate people's lives and homes, they do that. It's not because of global warming, and it's not because of the gum tree. The Aboriginals told us from the beginning, and you're right, they did, and government doesn't listen as usual, and they didn't do their reduction burns. So here you are saying Aboriginal people warned us about not doing reduction burns. Then you're agreeing with Jeremy saying we should rip out the forest and replant trees. And the government should listen to Jeremy's ideas. Really? He wants to decimate the country. The Aborigines looked after the country. The burning of the rubbish on the ground is looking after the forest. And any gum tree that died in that fire would sprout new ones from the seeds in the soil, because they need the bushfire. That's what it's all about. So you're hypocritical across the whole story. You're promoting it like you're for Jeremy, but you're not. You're hypocritical about everything he says, but then you talk it up like, oh yes, Jeremy, yes, you're so amazing, you're so wonderful. But then you check yourself with facts that are against what he's saying. Jeremy's not full backbone. Don't misunderstand that for a fact. He's come out and said straight up, we need to get rid of gum trees, full stop. Get rid of them all. That's his statement. You're for backburner. So why on earth are you telling this Jeremy idiot that, oh yeah, no, they're right, the Aboriginals warned us we should be backburning. We should be doing fire hazard reduction burn-offs. And yet, you're asking the government to listen to the idiot, Jeremy Griffith, on replanting our bushland to non-native trees. That is the most un-Australian, unethical and dickhead idea I've ever heard. So I don't know if you understood what you were actually saying on your show, but I got to tell you, I know you agreed with Graham on what he was saying, and Graham's right, but what Jeremy's saying, Graham's not agreeing with, and neither are you. But then you turn to Jeremy and go, man, why isn't the government listening to you? Well, normally people who come on your show would say, you'd call them out and say, that's an idiot idea. What are you, crazy? You got mothballs in your ears? What the hell's going on? But this time you're like blowing wind up these choo-choo, and yet you're not even for what he's for. He is for the demolition of all gum trees, all Australian bush gum trees in Australia. They should be eradicated from wherever people live, and we should eradicate every gum tree, because they're crocodiles buried with their tails deep in the sand, waiting to demolish and eat all human life on Earth. And you come out and say, oh yeah, imagine, the whole Australian bush all at once up in flames. Well, if there ever is an event where the entire Australian bush is one massive fire, well, I think it's the event we need to be worried about, because the fire will be the after effect. And if that fire is the after effect, we've probably got a lot more to worry about than an inferno. However, there has been an inferno once before, happened in World War One. Just for your knowledge, you might want to research it. The reason it got out of hand was all our boys were overseas fighting wars. So it left hardly anyone to go fight the fire, so it burnt hundreds and thousands of acres. So it happened once before. And the end statement to this little conversation will clear that issue up. Quick, smart, and in a hurry. Along with your planting in other species from other countries. The result of that will also be explained at the end of this. So, again, all I'm hearing is Jeremy flapping wind out his mouth and having his own little world of psychosis affiliated to a dream of his that he can focus on to try and look good in front of his friends, which is exactly what he tells you. It's exactly what he tells you. That is wrong. That is the human condition. And he is the number one sufferer of it. That's why he keeps bringing it up. Look in the mirror, Jeremy. You're suffering from psychosis. You have gone into a religious fanaticism about gum trees to try and promote yourself to look good in front of your friends, because your own life is just hell to live with. And this is the only scapegoat you've got. Geez, I'd love him to get fanatical about rats. If he got fanatical about rats, I'd probably be on his side. Let's abolish all rats in Australia. Wouldn't that be great? How about cane toads? Jeremy, get onto cane toads. Get focused on cane toads. Let's eradicate cane toads. You won't have a single Australian against you. Not a single one. But gum trees? Well, that's just a stupid idea. And you're still going on about it. To this day. Let the gum trees alone, Jeremy. Go focus on rats and cane toads. Let's focus on feral animals that don't belong here, that have become pests in our country, that were introduced species with no known enemy. So how about, Jeremy, you get onto that and you'll have my support. Get onto rats and cane toads and wild pigs and all that sort of stuff. And I promise you, Jeremy, I'll back you, because talking about gum trees, I'm going to hammer you to the earth every single time. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you just how much your argument really sucks. Now, he talked about how the government fits a solution to the end to appease the lefties and the tree huggers. Well, the solution to bushfires is simple. The Aboriginals say it. Alan reverberated it. It's simply reduction burning. That's it. That's all it is. You have to do reduction burns. Because before we were here, reduction burns were natural. Lightning strikes would start a reduction burn, and the bushfires would burn until they burnt out. Days, months, a year, it doesn't matter. No one was here. Now when we see a bushfire, we race out there and put it out straight away. And Alan brought up that 1 billion animals died in those bushfires, and you're probably way under the mark. If you want to go into animals, we can go right down to grubs and bugs, be a lot more than 1 million, I can assure you. But that's what our country is designed to do. It is designed to burn. Animals are designed to die in those fires. And if we're in that path, we are no different than a kangaroo or a koala. No matter what we are. If we're in that fire's path and we don't get the hell out the way, we are no different than an animal. and we are designed to burn in that fire. So, reduction burns are the only thing. And you mentioned fire breaks. Well, most national parks have fire breaks. But again, the one thing at the end of this, I'll tell you what it is that happens with those fire breaks that causes these big bushfires. So far, we've got planting non-native trees into our bushland that we're going to demolish of gum trees. And these non-invasive, these non-burning trees will have no Australian animal's going to get into them and hook into them and eat them or look after them or nest in them because they're not native. So if you're going to change the native trees, you have to change the native species. And we have a very unique single environment of species that are found nowhere else on Earth. So if you change the plant life, you change the wildlife. You get it? It's not just change one and not the other. Like, you can't eradicate one complete tree and think that that's all that's going to be affected. You will decimate just about 90% of Australian wildlife. Because as much as you sit on your show saying, oh, only a koala will eat a gum tree, what about cockatoos, corellas, parrots? They're all into gum trees. They use them for nesting. They use them for honey. The bees, native bees, get the honey off the flowers. Don't think it's just one species. This is Australia. Our species are designed to live with gum trees. And they have ways of getting out of bushfires. Some can't, but some can. The ones that can't, unfortunately, perish. But that's nature. That's what nature does. It chooses. And everything happens for a reason. Everything, no matter how bad it is, there's a reason. We can limit the effects of those by reduction burning, as stated by the Aboriginals, as stated by you who quoted the Aboriginals. How about you tell Jeremy, we don't need to eradicate gum trees, Jeremy. We just need to back burn. That's it. We just need to do fire hazard reduction burning. Burn the scraps. That's it. That's all you have to do. And the thing about, the greenies, they won't let you do bushfires. Yeah, well, that was a thing. They did do that. The greenies did prevent us doing back burning because it's all about, you're burning our forest. Well, that's because greenies are like you, Jeremy. They're suffering from the human condition of psychosis, where they focus on an environmental or some aspect of life to make them look good in front of their friends. So you're right. The greenies do suffer from psychosis, along with you, because you're with them. You're on the opposite end of the scale, but you both suffer the same psychosis. It's called the human condition. Get it, Jeremy? You're suffering from your own condition. And the greenies, well, they're the ones suffering from the same condition because they were against it. They're probably not so against it now. But the reason it's not being done is because it takes resources and money. And that's the falling. That's the failing of it. You don't want a big bushfire, you need to do reduction burns. But then the locals whinge, oh, there's smoke, I can smell smoke. Oh, the smoke's in my house and it's making my clothes smell like smoke. So it's not the gum tree's fault. We live in Australia. If you don't like the Australian environment, you don't like the idea of smelling bushfires and stuff like that, pack your shit and piss off. Because this is the country. I'm sure the local landholders and the Aboriginals won't have any qualm if you don't like the smell of a bushfire to pack your shit and bugger off. No one's going to miss you any different. Go live in some cold environment. Go to Europe. What else can you do? You can't live in Australia. You don't like bushfires. Anyone coming here should already know by now. Australia floods and burns. If we're not flooding, we're burning. That's Australia. That's what it is. If you can't live with that, then don't live here. Pack your stuff and bugger off. So we've got into that side of it. Now he talks about focusing on the minority. Well, you're not focusing on the minority, Jeremy. They're focusing on what's inside your head is called a brain. And if you use an analytical brain just slightly, you will know that you cannot eradicate gum trees from Australia without stuffing the entire environment, the whole food chain, top to bottom. You would kill Australia. You would kill every living species in Australia. So that's just bullshit. What are we going to swap them for oak trees and introduce squirrels? Come on. What an idiot idea. It's just ridiculous. And I got to tell you, Alan Jones, you really did surprise me bringing this fool on your show, because I can't criticize him without criticizing you. So, gum trees are a very adaptive tree. They are built to resist fires. That's their job. The reason the bark splinters and flies off is because it takes the fire away from the tree. It's designed to do that. That's what stringy bark's all about. It catches on fire and floats away. Takes the fire away from the tree. Yeah, it spreads it somewhere else, but it takes it away from that tree. So that's what they're kind of designed to do. So Jeremy goes on to say we can't live with them. Shit, I got 3 in my backyard, Jeremy. They haven't burnt me out of house and home yet. It's just ridiculous to say, we can live with them. It just means in our forests that we have to do a bit of reduction burning so they don't turn into horrific blazes. And Alan goes on about how many national parks we got in Australia. Well, shit, mate. That should be something you should be proud of, not something you should be shitting on. That's just ridiculous to make that statement. So I'm not sure why you think for a second that having so many national parks in Australia is a bad thing. I was a bit shocked at Alan for that statement, because for me, national parks are our pride. It shows that we're not against nature. We're trying to live with it, not against it. So for you to come out and say we have more national parks than anywhere else in the world is a bad thing? Are you freaking insane? Did you catch Jeremy's cold? Are you now suffering from his human condition psychosis? Come on, Alan. This is what Australia's famous for. It's part of our tourism business. It makes us how many $billion a year, and you want to shit on our national parks? Come on. That's the whole point of having what we've got here. The national parks are our heritage, our history, everything. And you want to go and say, oh, we got too many? What, do you want to go cut some down? Seriously? I want more. I want more national parks. I don't want less. I think the more national parks we get, the better. Maybe we can start having some of this arid country of ours getting built up and made livable. Follow what they're doing over in Dubai with their desert. Maybe we can do the same here. That's just ridiculous. I couldn't believe you said that. You lost a few points for that one. But having no gum trees near business and homes, that's just a dumbass statement. Look, I agree, don't have one sitting right next to the wall of your house, because the roots are going to uproot your house. They're going to find your water pipe. They're going to rip them out the earth for you. Right next to your house, yeah, I agree, don't have one right next to your house. Shit, mine's probably 10 metres away down the back. But I'm not going to go chop it down. Hell no. It's a beautiful tree. I got a red gum. I got a ghost gum. Can't remember what the other one was. Might be a bloodwood. Anyway, I'm not getting rid of any of them. They're there. They're staying. If they have little sapling trees, I'm going to let them grow too. I'm all for having trees around, and I'm not even a tree hugger, but I love them. I think the animals love them, because I get a lot of wildlife in my backyard. I've had cockatoos, king parrots, pale-headed rosellas, eastern rosellas. I've got possums living in them, native bees. I've got, they all come here. Magpies, butcherbirds, kookaburras,
Oh, thorny frog mouths, I've got 3 sleeping in a tree down the backyard right now. Took a photo of them. It's like, without these things, you don't get wildlife, you know? And without wildlife, what are we living in a desert? Seriously. So let's get on to your coat hanger, all right? Because you put yourself in one, and Alan, you affiliated with it by backing this idiot Jeremy up. Seriously. Now, you came on and you said, look what they're doing in Portugal, where they are removing the invasive species of the gum tree because they're a firebomb. Wow. That's what the first quarter of the story about why they're moving trees from. It's a little place called, if you don't know, I've written notes here so I get this, Glacia, Galicia. Anyway, it's in Portugal. They've got gum trees. They've planted them because they wanted it was for the pulp mills. So they put, this is just for you, Alan, to get you squared away on this, because what you said was bullshit. You read the first line of the story and went with it. Mate, you're a journalist. You're supposed to go and do your homework. It took me, I don't know, another 50 lines to see the truth of the story that the media didn't want you to read, because most people only read the first bit, which is what you clearly did. And then you promoted it to Jeremy Griffith, because he's going to use it in his next statement, saying, oh yeah, but they're getting rid of them in Portugal because they're firebombs. Well, that's not all true. Let's get down to your little coat hangers, because listen up to this, guys, because I want to hear your feedback on what I'm talking about today, because I can tell you it's a coat hanger. You watch this happen right now. They've told you they're getting rid of gum trees on his show because they're firebombs. If you read the headline of the story, that's pretty much what they're saying. If you read the first 2 paragraphs, that's pretty much what they're saying. However, it gets better. If you read further down, like to the last 2 paragraphs of probably a 3-page document, like when you scroll down, it goes down about 3 pages, and it's the last 2 paragraphs that are official statements from the government, not newspaper reporting to sell freaking stories, because this is where the media screws it up. Media will sell you a story for what they want you to read, and they'll go, oh, firebomb. People go, oh yeah, I'll read that. If they wrote the last paragraph first, you'd turn a page. It's that boring, but we'll get to that. Okay, now first off, in this Galicia place in Portugal, Spain, it talks about they're removing the gum tree because it's an invasive species. Well, the reason it's probably invasive is because it is not a local plant to Portugal. It was never a local plant to Portugal. They planted it because of its rapid growth. They can sell the tree in 12 to 14 years to the pulp mill, and the wood industry made money off it. That's why they were put there. That's why I didn't even know they had gum trees, but that's why they took them. That's why they imported them. It was for their pulp mill industry. But as the pulp mill industry is now slowed down and people have moved from the country to the city for easier living, now the trees are just left to their own devices, and the trees having a whirlwind of a time, I can tell you. So now they're going to try and remove the invasive species to make way for native species to grow, because it's affecting the biodiversity. Now, let's reverse that. Let's say we're doing Jeremy's dickhead idea. Let's swap gum trees for oak trees. Why not? Apparently they've got oak trees over in Galicia. So maybe we'll borrow their oak trees and we'll plant them instead. So we'll remove the gum trees completely, put oak trees in. Now, what happens to the biodiversity of Australian wildlife if you remove a complete species of a tree and replace it with another? Then we're going to be saying we need to remove the oak tree and bring back the gum tree because it's affecting our biodiversity. You understanding, Jeremy? Biodiversity is nature. It's not us. Biodiversity is mother's nature. That's it. We don't control biodiversity. Nature controls it. If we try and change it too much, nature will fix it. We're not going to like it, but nature will fix it. Build your city on a river that floods. Nature will fix it. Floods it again. And it'll happen every single time. It'll never stop. We can't control it. We can try, but we can't. So, we built Wivenhoe Dam to stop flooding in Brisbane. Go back and read the articles. Wivenhoe Dam, the solution to Brisbane flooding. Has it? All we've done is move the flood. We've moved the water. It floods in other areas that it never used to flood, but now it floods there. Why? Why is that happening? Well, all we did was build a dam. You mess with biodiversity, you burn, because diversity will win every single time. Nature finds a way. Always will. We lose 100% of the time. Nature wins. So they're removing the trees for biodiversity reasons, not because they burn good. They've found that they call them the gum tree forests in Galicia. They call them wastelands, eucalyptus wastelands. Now that's because their animals don't use gum trees. They don't eat anything off the gum tree. They don't have anything to do with the gum tree because they're not gum tree animals. We have the gum tree animals. They don't. So if you introduce a gum tree into another environment and they don't have the same animals we have, then of course the gum tree is a wasteland to the animal. It looks at it and goes, nothing over there to eat. Bugger off over here. It's just biodiversity again. See, Jeremy, you seeing the results of what you're thinking? They've got gum tree wastelands. It's just a forest of gum trees with minimal to no animals. Bring an oak tree over, make an oak forest. Look at a pine forest. Go for a walk through a pine forest, Mr. Jeremy, and have a look at the wasteland of pine forest. There is minimal animals, and it's a wasteland to our animals because our animals don't eat those pine trees. If we grew the big pines like the bunya pine, well, then our animals would be interested. But the pine cone tree that they grow for wood, our animals aren't interested. There's nothing in those trees our animals are interested in, and they are animal wastelands. That's what happens when you swap out a tree for another tree, Jeremy. You create a tree wasteland. All the animals are gone. That's what you create. Now, they said in Spain that the forest fires are not only related to the presence of gum trees, but the lack of support to the rural areas make them more vulnerable to wildfires. Because there is no backburns, because no one's managing the land, if a fire breaks out, it's going to burn, and it's going to burn good. So they go on to say, the coat hanger, here's a coat hanger. Now the government states, I quote, fact, if you look at the Galicia fires, you will see that the areas that burned most are not these with the most gum trees, but those most affected are demographically abandoned. Okay, Jeremy, we've got areas where there's massive amounts of gum trees untouched. This explosive oil bomb, this detonation of a nuclear tree that can wipe out the mankind of history, as Alan puts it, these things are like bombs, and yet they're not the most burned areas. Why is that? Because it's not the tree. Yes, the tree's flammable. Gives a shit. So are a lot of trees. But that's not why they burn so bad. They burn bad when they're unmanaged. That's when they burn bad. Because we don't do the reduction burns that we're supposed to be doing, that nature used to do, and we prevent. We prevent nature from backburning the forest by putting the fires out. Oh, because God forbid it makes your clothes smell like smoke for a week. Bullshit. So I'm calling you out again, Jeremy. You going on the Alan Jones show just brings Alan Jones show down a couple of pegs and makes him look like he's now got your human condition because he's lost the plot. Alan, you need to do your homework. Like, mate, I'm for you for 90% of your shows. Seriously, I am. I used to love watching you on TV when I was younger. But now you're just like, the hell are you bringing this fool on your channel for? You're not even on his side if you listen to your discussion. You're trying to, I know you're trying to promote a story to sell. What, have you got no more news? How about instead of bringing Jeremy on your show, you go revisit the fire devastated places and do a show on that? Or you go revisit the flooded areas and go do a show on that? Or you go revisit the war history and go do a show on that? How about you do a show on people worth remembering? Or some fella who done an amazing thing in Australian history that no one else remembers? Go do a show on that. We'd be interested to listen to that. Don't bring Jeremy on your show and infect your show with his bullshit. I'm going to call him out every single time, and if he's on your show, I'm going to call him out because it's bullshit. It proved it about Spain. It's not about the trees being a flammable bomb. That's not why they're ripping them out. They're ripping them out because it's a biodiversity disaster. That's why they're ripping them out. And it would happen here. You swap our gum trees for another tree that doesn't burn so well from another place in the world, we're going to have a biodiversity disaster. That's why the Australian government won't listen to idiots like Jeremy. They're just not going to listen to him because he's an idiot. He's not going to get traction. He's not going to be well liked, and he's not going to be promoted by any serious newsreaders. So I don't know why you put him on your show. Like, shit, if you're going to put him on your show, you can put anyone on your show. Anyone. Just pick a dickhead. Because that's all you've done. Downgraded your show to idiot proof. Like, come on. Open your eyes. You don't even agree with what he's saying. In your own show, you're talking about how the Aboriginals talk about backburning, and you agreed. When Graham brought up about backburning, you agreed. Jeremy is talking about ripping out all the frickin' trees and replacing them. Well, there you go, followers. Have a listen to that and let me know what you think. And if you spot Jeremy on anything, give me a cue because I think I've got the human condition. I think what was it again? The human condition psychosis. I think I've got the suffering from psychosis where I find a belief that makes me look good in front of my friends. Actually, this doesn't make me look good in front of my friends. So they like what I do because it calls Jeremy out on his shit. But I don't know if anyone really likes what... It doesn't make me look good in front of my friends. I do this because I want to do it, not because of my friends. My friends don't give a shit if I write this sort of stuff or don't. Because, this is the human condition. That's what I've got. Sorry, Jeremy, I'm suffering from the human condition. And unfortunately, I've focused on you because my life is so hard and so depressing. No, I can't even say that with an honest face. My life's bloody good, mate. But seriously, Jeremy's got the human condition. He's got the psychosis, focusing on the gum trees to make himself look good in front of his friends. He's hoping someone will listen to him. And unfortunately, Alan Jones, you were it. And you don't even agree with his shit. But you put him on. He should have paid you to take him off. That's what you should have been paid for. when they said, "Oh, you want to bring Jeremy on the show?" He said, "Give me 100,000, I'll get him off." Easy as, What did you? I hope you didn't pick him as your guest and invite him back. I hope someone else invited him, and if that person did, sack him. Anyone on your team who invited that guy on your show, sack him, because he just brings your show down to make it look like it's gutter trash. Well, that's just a tradie's point of view. As you know the rules. Put your comments down below, like and share. Let's give Jeremy a big, warm koala hug and tell him to fuck off and leave the gum trees alone. That's it for me. Have a good night.